Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I am your host, John Ledyard, along with my good friend today, joined by Timo Riske from Pro Football Focus. Timo is not only a terrific analyst of all things football and all things NFL, he also happens to be one of us, a Bucs fan, a Bucs faithful, following this team through thick and thin over the years. Timo, thank you so much for joining me on today's show. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for having me. I mean, obviously it's more thin than thick in recent years for the Bucs, but we might get there at some point.
That's true. Yeah, I think there's probably more hope maybe than in years past, and so it's been fun. I mean, I've only been covering the team for a little while now, and but I've enjoyed it greatly. Not only just because of the Tom Brady stuff, but also I think the community that really has enjoyed the Bucs for years is really cool. And one of the neat things is that you're in Germany. You're near Frankfurt, Germany, and you've become a Bucs fan and a Bucs faithful from all the way from out there. And it's like, man, how do you pick the Bucs as your team? And you were telling me before we got in the air, it was almost a Falcons. You were almost a Falcons fan, but fate saved you. Fate intervened, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, I had like 4 teams I liked. It was like 10 years ago when I started watching the NFL, and I can't even remember which the other teams were, but the Falcons and the Bucs were 2 of these. And then I basically told my girlfriend to get me a beanie for Christmas for an NFL team, and I mentioned the 4 teams to her, and she chose the Bucs.
Hey, I mean, it wasn't that bad timing for 2020 anyway, because the Bucs have seemingly put together it's a great collection of talent, a really fun collection of talent, players, that not only through the free agency, we all talk about Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, but also through the draft and the way that they've built this team, especially on offense, just doing some really, really strong drafting there. All these pieces, Timo, and we have this group that looks so great on paper, and we've seen it for chunks of games, right? We've seen it for portions of every game this season, but first half against Carolina in week 2, first half against Denver in week 3, even like last week. I mean, the Bears game, we saw in the first half, it looked like, they're moving the ball well and things seem like they're going well. And in the Chargers second half, they're coming back and they're throwing the ball over the yard and the deep ball is clicking everywhere. And then it just seems like consistency has been such a hard thing for this group in 2020. Now, what is stopping this Bucs offense from being truly elite?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I mean, obviously the question going into the season was like, the first question was, I mean, what was Tom Brady? I mean, is he washed? Is he not washed?
Right.
And I mean, the good news is obviously he is not washed. I mean,
right.
he can still play pretty well, and he still has a lot of zip behind his throws. I mean, obviously he had a lot of deep success.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't look at the Bears game,
right.
but even like his intermediate throws over the middle, there's still a lot of zip behind the throw. So I don't think there's a problem with Tom Brady, but yeah. So this is the good news, but on the other, this is also the bad news somehow. Like, yeah, your quarterback is playing well, and you also have a lot of talent. Your offensive line is playing okay, or even well,
right?
And you also have a lot of talent at receiver, and still your offense is not really clicking. And I mean, one thing I noticed, which worked really well for the Bucs last year, and in general in previous years with James Winston, was obviously I mean, they got a lot of chunk plays over the middle, like these between 10 and 20 yards over the middle.
Yeah.
This was where James was really on the money. And I mean, Tom Brady can also make these throws, but what I noticed is the Bucs just won fewer routes over the intermediate middle. So basically between 10 and 20 yards.
Right.
Deep, like over the middle, crossing routes, stuff like this. They haven't run these routes as frequent as last year.
Right. We saw him a little bit in the Bears game, right? Or first couple drives of the Bears game.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing is, I mean, they have been really good, like in the first drive or first 2 drives in basically every game. and then they suddenly get worse over over the course of the game. But maybe, I mean, obviously the guy who does the most damage over the middle of the field in this intermediate range is obviously Chris last year, and he hasn't really played much this year. So I mean, there is some hope. Maybe because maybe Evans just doesn't trust any of these young receivers to make these tough catches over the middle, and that's why he didn't send them there. And so maybe with Chris Godwin fully healthy, we might see more production over the middle of the field.
Yeah, that's a good.
That's really important, because it would put they are very dependent on the deep ball right now.
Right.
Against the Chargers or against the Broncos, the deep ball was working really, really well, and against the Bears, it wasn't working at all.
Yeah.
And then the offense stalled. So if you can take a little bit of pressure off the deep ball with these intermediate throws, then there's some hope that the offense will get better.
I think it's a great point. I think it's something that I have struggled to kind of put into words, but hearing you say it has kind of brought it to life for me. You're exactly right. There is we've talked about how Brady's been able to throw the deep ball great this season, and that's been awesome. And there's been plenty of the short stuff, but there has not been a lot of the intermediate stuff. And I think that's why I was so encouraged early in the start of that Bears game. It was like, man, I feel like this team is finding the rhythm in the intermediate routes. We saw Tyler Johnson over the middle a few times, and we saw Jaden Mickens over the middle. Rob Gronkowski caught one crossing the middle of the field. So they were attacking the Bears horizontally, and it was allowing them to get vertical after the catch, and it was successful for them. And then it felt like that in the second half, they kind of got away from that at some point. So we'll definitely talk about that. Do want to welcome in everybody who's kind of joining the show and getting some of those push notifications to their phone, hopefully, and kind of checking out what we're about. Want to let you all know this is a new thing we're doing at Pewter Report. We are going live with our podcast. We're going to have a big announcement on Monday that talks about us kind of expanding our podcast and doing some cool, unique things with it. And so we're excited about that. Welcoming you all to the show, and say, hey, if you want to help us out, subscribe on YouTube. Go to Pewter Report TV, subscribe on YouTube. We've added hundreds of subscribers in the last week, 10 days. It's been awesome. It's going to allow us to do some awesome things with this podcast. But keep subscribing and keep helping us out and checking us out, because we're going to be coming to you live a lot throughout the week, in season, out of season, draft season. We're going to be bringing you lots of great content on this platform. So check us out and subscribe. Pewter Report TV. Make sure you're hitting us up on there. Timo Riske from Pro Football Focus is my guest today, and he is offering some great insight on this Bucs offense. Timo, one of the things that we've talked about early, I remember you and I talking about it after week one. We were kind of like, man, if they go with a run-heavy approach like they are, especially on early downs, we are going to be in a world of hurt. Since then, we have seen the Bucs and Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians, as much as we may criticize some things, and we'll get to that a little bit in a little bit, but we've seen them go more pass-heavy in neutral situations. Can you, just for the readers or for the listeners and the viewers right now, can you describe a little bit of what neutral situations are and why it's important to look at neutral situations when you're analyzing how pass heavy a team is on these early down situations?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is obviously like on third down or so, I mean, whether you throw the ball or whether you run the ball basically depends on the distance. I mean, on third and 1, you obviously run a lot, and on third and 10, you will basically always pass the ball. So whether a team passes or runs on third down is not really reflects the philosophy of the coach, whether he wants to be run heavy or pass heavy offense. But like on first and 10 or second on second down, maybe excluding like short yardage. But when you can also include short yardage, because obviously, I mean, like especially second and short are of course primed for play action shots where you can suck the defense in because they might expect a run and then take a shot downfield. So basically measuring pass percentage or run percentage, which obviously the same, just it obviously adds up to 100%.
Right.
So measuring pass percentage only on early downs is important, but obviously you also have to account for the game situation, because I mean, if you trail by 2 scores or more, or if you lead by 2 scores or more, and if you lead, you will obviously run a lot And if you trail, you will obviously pass a lot because
True.
it's the fastest way to
Right.
somehow get back into the game. So basically, neutral situation is basically first and second down. When it's say like within, I mean, there are several definitions. It doesn't really matter which you take. Like you can take within 1 score, within 2 score, or I mean there are these metrics like win probability, and then you can basically say okay, between 20 and 80% win probability is where the coach really decides what he wants to do, and everything beyond that depends a lot on the situation. So if you have a win probability lower than 20%, I mean, of course, the coach doesn't know that because the coach will not know, okay, we have a win probability of 18%. I mean, he will not know that, but of course, he knows that he's about to lose the game. And then he will, of course, pass a lot.
Right.
But so these neutral situations are basically measuring whether a team is run heavy or pass heavy.
Right.
Yeah, and for the Bucs this year, I think they are currently like in these neutral situations. They passed the ball at, I think, at the 10th highest rate, 9th or 10th, something like that, which is fine. But interestingly, it was basically like last year. I mean, I remember the same from last year. In the first game, and that's where we talked about it after week 1, they started the season very run heavy against the Saints, and they did the same against the 49ers last year in week 1. And yeah, obviously it didn't go too well.
and then they started taking off with the pass again.
And then they started passing. Yeah.
That sounds like the Bruce Arians we know and love.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, you want to be able to, I think, be efficient when you run the football. And certainly the Bucs have run it. You know, I think they've run it well this season. They've certainly run it better this season than we can remember in a long time. And Ronald Jones' last 2 games as a Buccaneer, honestly, I mean, I don't think there's been 2 games like that for a Buccaneers running back since Doug Martin was, you know, in his prime, having his great years in Tampa Bay. That's how good Ronald Jones has looked, creating and breaking tackles and making guys miss on the second level the last couple of weeks as a runner. So it's like encouraging signs, but at the same time, it's like, how much do we talk about it? Because we know at the end of the day that if this offense is going to be successful, they're going to have to be able to throw the football well this season. And one of the things that they've done throwing the football well is play action. When they've gone play action, which is not a very high rate, it's one of the lower rates in the league, I believe. When they've done it, they've been great at it. They have a ton of yards off. And I think Brady, even though they're one of the lowest percentages in the league, he has one of the highest yards off play action in the league, yards gained off play action in the league. And he's been efficient at it. I mean, it's been almost like an automatic completion for them off play action, but there's still kind of this like lack of a move to it exclusively. We've seen, I think, Josh Allen and Jared Goff lead the league right now in play action passes, and voila, they're having great seasons. You know, it's just something that it works for offenses. Like, I don't know that we can break it down, but I don't know that it even it just works. The data has proven that it works. Why won't the Bucs go more play action heavy, Timo?
Yeah, it's a weird situation because I mean it's obviously basically works for almost any offense, and I mean obviously I think it's always we should always be like cautious when we like criticize the play selection or the play calling of the coaches because obviously they should be the experts in that, and obviously they have their reasons for calling certain plays. Yeah. But I mean the thing with the Bucs is like we have now obviously we have Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich came in 2019, and since then we just have a sample of play action working for the Bucs. They were, I think, last year they had the second most yards per attempt of play action behind only the Titans, who are obviously very successful with play action. Yeah. And I mean Jameis Winston famously threw 30 interceptions, but only 2 of them came off play action.
Wow.
So that's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so they were really successful off play action last year, so it's working for this offense. And this year it's the same. They're currently leading the league in yards per attempt of play action. I mean, and that's a crazy stat actually.
Yeah.
So off play action, the Bucs, they are leading the league in yards per attempt. So obviously, they have more yards per attempt than the Titans, of play action, and of all other plays or of non-play action passes, they also have more yards per attempt than the Titans, but actually they're both bad. So the Bucs are like 28th in yards per attempt of non-play action passes, and the Titans are 31st. So they are both bad.
Gaining yards is good though. So
so the Bucs are better of play action and they are better of non-play action than the Titans. But overall, when you look at outplays, the Titans are better. They have more yards per attempt, and the only reason for that is that they are using play action more often, and play action gains more yards generally.
Crazy.
So that's
it's crazy.
That perfectly describes why the Bucs aren't using enough play action. And I think currently they're even 32nd in play action position. The Bucs and the Steelers are the two teams which don't like play action.
Right. The Steelers, I'm a Pittsburgh guy, so from there, and I know it's never been. I don't know if it's Ben Roethlisberger. They haven't used it a lot since he's been there, or whatever. But it's funny for the Bucs because Tom Brady has used it a lot in the past. I mean, not at a like prolific rate necessarily, but like he's been it's been one of the higher rates in the league certainly for a while, and it's been something that's been successful for him clearly, and that's been great in Tampa Bay, and it's translated, it's worked, and they've hit deep balls, and like you said, they're churning out yards on play action, highest in the league, yards per attempt for play action. But and the rest of the passing attack, it's not like it's not been good enough, and they're still not using play action, which has clearly been strong for them, and they're not using it enough. And they say this, and I don't know that they even believe it, Timo. I know we hear coaches say this. They say you have to establish the run. That's what we've heard Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians say, to establish the run to be able to go play action. Well, they've run the ball great the last 2 weeks, and their play action attempts really haven't increased by much. I think it was 6, 6, 6 the first 3 weeks of the season, and then it was like 8 or 9 and 8, I think, play action attempts. So like maybe 2 or 3 more reps a game if you're running it well, I guess. But over those first 3 weeks, they didn't really run it great. I know Fournette had the big run at the end of week 2, but then over the last 2 weeks, they've run the ball well pretty much throughout the game, and they've really barely deployed more play action. I don't even know if that's just a thing coaches say at this point, but data's shown us it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and their own team was an example last year. I mean, they didn't run the ball well last year, and they still were like the best offense of play action with James Winston. So it's weird, and I mean, obviously, I mean, play action helps an offense at many levels, and I mean, we can like analytically show this. I mean, obviously, the first thing is it helps opening passing lanes over the middle because the linebackers are just not there where they usually would be in coverage. But I think the even more valuable thing, and this is what really helps the Bucs, is it slows down the pass rush. So the pass rush just on average comes to the quarterback later in the snap on play action than on non-play action throws. And especially when you run an offense like the Bucs, or you want to throw downfield, you have long developing routes. Then it makes so much sense to give your receivers more time to get open, and then give the quarterback more time to find an open receiver when you have these long developing plays. I mean, that's why they are so successful in play action, I guess. Yeah. Because they have the time to wait for the receivers to get open, but for some reason they won't use it. Yeah. And I think it would also help like give Ronald Jones some confidence. I mean, that's Ronald Jones' problem right now. I mean, he doesn't really help in the passing game. He has a lot of drops, and I don't think he's really confident right now catching the ball. But I mean, play action obviously also gives some space underneath for the running back or in the flat. He just should get more space on play action. So you could give him the ball in space. Create some confidence for him. Some easy chunk plays for him. I mean, I think this could really help him because, I mean, obviously he physically is able to catch the ball and make some people miss. I mean, he's showing that in the run game, so he should be able to late in the passing game. But I think it could help them at many different levels.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy that we've at this point in the season, and it doesn't feel like it's clicked in with the coaches that might be a better idea to deploy it more. I don't think it's like a death knell or anything like that, but at the same time, definitely something to watch and monitor moving forward is how this team deploys play action, and if they increase their play action usage. Although the sample size with Bruce Arians over the years has told us that's probably pretty unlikely. But so I wouldn't necessarily bet on the Bucs going more play action moving forward this season. But one place you can bet is with our friends over at MyBookie. Between the NFL, college ball, and MLB playoffs, there's no shortage of games to watch. And with thousands of lines available on all your favorite sports and events, you can turn your game day into payday with MyBookie. If you're the type of guy who likes to back the big favorites, consider putting a couple in a parlay for a much bigger payout. Not only do parlays make meaningless games exciting, but more importantly, they give you a chance to turn ordinary bets into a real moneymaker. And don't forget the underdogs. They have a ton of value. The thing about the NFL is that underdogs are never really dogs on Sunday. Every team truly has a chance to win, and you do too. Game spreads, championship futures, and player prop bets. It's never too late to get in on the action and start turning your sports knowledge into actual cash in your wallet. Sign up at MyBookie, and when you do, use our promo code Pewter right there on the screen for those of you who are watching live, PEWTER, Pewter, to claim a deposit match dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. It's a bonus designed to give you a little help and a head start on your winning season. That's promo code Pewter, PEWTER, for you to claim your bonus when you make your deposit. Stacked UFC cards, presidential prop bets, all the major sports and more. Sign up today to begin your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. Timo, one of the things that we talked about just this past week, it was made really evident from the Bears game, and I think viewers, people who are watching right now, are this is going to resonate with you a little bit, is the off coverage that the Bucs played against the Bears. I mean, it just seemed like this team was not being aggressive enough defensively with the deployment of their corners and taking away some of the space that receivers had just to get open underneath and to continue to catch short, uncontested passes from Nick Foles, which allowed them to move down the field a couple times in this game. There was one drive in particular, I think it was the Bears' penultimate field goal drive of the game, where they got down the field. I think it was chunks of like 9, 7, 8 yards, and it was all uncontested underneath throws, and there was no adjustment in that situation from defensive coordinator Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles, I think he's a heck of a defensive coordinator. I know fans after the game were like, why do people talk up Bowles so much? He's a heck of a defensive coordinator. He's done a great job. One mistake doesn't define that, but I did think this was a mistake. I thought that the deployment of his corners in more press situations could have been a situation that could have saved the team yardage and important yardage in a game that wasn't very high scoring. And I talked to Jamel Dean a little bit about it the other day, and he said we were expecting him to throw deep more. We thought on tape Nick Foles had thrown a lot of deep balls, and we thought, if we could take that away, that we'd stop their offense, but he adjusted and threw underneath a ton. Now, I get that, but at the same time, then I'm like, man, then maybe you guys should adjust as the game goes on and you see what he's struggling to do well and what you guys are able to take away from him. The other thing is that Carlton Davis has been great in press man this season, and he's hardly been able to do it. 34 times, he told me, he's been able to play in press coverage situations this season and has done well in it. It seems like it's the best fit for him. We saw him struggling some in zone the other night. I think of the catch by Allen Robinson down the sideline where he got turned around a little bit. And then we think of the Darnell Mooney double move on the post corner route that should have been a touchdown if Nick Foles hit him early in the game. I think it was maybe early second quarter, second quarter. Those plays kind of are like, okay, this is something that, and it's not just this game either. I just think in general, Carlton Davis has been better in press coverage, and it's not been something that the Bucs have used very much for whatever reason. Is that the same? If you look at last year, was that the case last year with them as well? And what is the reasoning, maybe, do you think, behind so little deployment of press coverage when you have all these corners that are huge and you think would be drafted to be able to play in press situations and disrupt receivers off the line of scrimmage?
I mean, against Nick Foles, I could imagine that they overcorrected a little bit because of Justin Herbert beating them deep like a few times. I think he got them at least 3 times or so, and they got 2 touchdowns out of it. Maybe they overcorrected a little bit, because obviously Nick Foles is also not bad at throwing an accurate ball when he has a clearly defined read, like clearly defined one-on-one matchup. I think that's what they wanted to avoid. Yeah, but as you say, it obviously didn't work very very well. They were able to get some of these like 7-8 yard gains, and move the ball march down the field. And yeah, they could have adjusted a little bit, especially late in the game. I mean, like, because also time plays a factor, obviously, because I don't know how many time was left on the clock when the Bears got the ball to score the game-winning field goal. But obviously, I mean, if you allow a score there, I mean, you rather want to make it happen fast, right?
Right.
So I mean, there's basically no value in playing off coverage and allowing these 7, 8, 9 yard gains, and the clock takes like 30 seconds after each snap, and then the Bears can just kick a field goal with a few seconds left. I mean, there was more left because they passed at the end. I think they passed once, but if they just win the ball when they were like when they had like a 40-yard field goal, whatever it was, I think they could have run the clock down to 25 seconds or so, because they had these short gains. That's a situation where I would wish they would be a little bit more aggressive in press coverage. So if they beat us, that's fine, but at least we get the ball back with like 2 minutes left, and Tom Brady can win the game.
Yeah. That's a good point. Thinking about the clock like that is not something that I've found a lot of coaches do well, is thinking about the clock in kind of all situations, even when your defense looks like they're going to give up a score. Okay, it's about how much time can we preserve? How can we make it tougher for them to keep the clock moving, basically? And in that situation, it's like, if the Bears are going to throw these short passes, in the clock, that clock is going to be moving in those situations. It's almost like allowing them to run the ball, but for probably a bigger gain than you would likely get, I think, by averages when you do run the ball. And so you're allowing that to kind of happen and not contesting it. So that's why in those situations, and it's a big reason why, the perfect example of what you're saying is when Carlton Davis broke up that jump ball to Allen Robinson late in the game. He's in press man situation, and he's able to find that football playing in those tight quarters like that. He was not giving up any space, so he's able to get up, contest, and knock away that throw. And that incompletion basically allowed them to have a chance to win the game. Without that ball is complete. And obviously, I wouldn't say the Bears chose the highest, most efficient route to be able to throw to there to keep that clock moving. But if the ball is complete, it's probably game over for them. I mean, they're not going to have a chance, time-wise, to be able to do that. So that kind of speaks to what you're describing there. And speaking of game situations, we got a good question from Alex McBean. He asks, what do we think about Bruce Arians' choice to kick the field goal? So 4th and 1.5, I think it was. It was 3rd and 17. Brady threads the needle between a couple of defenders. A great pass that we overlooked, I think, moving on from the game, because there wasn't much reason to go back and talk about it. But he got him from a 3rd and 17 to a 4th and 1.5 situation without much to work with on the play, with a great throw. And Gronkowski gets about 1.5 yards short of the first down, 4th and 1.5 yards, and from the 7-yard line of the Bears, and the Bucs decide to kick the field goal and take, at that point, was a 19-17 lead. I forget how much time was left. I think it was like 5 minutes, I want to say, or something like that. I think it was 4:52. I want to say it was left. So
I think it was roughly 5 minutes.
Yeah, something around there. So that situation, you're an analytics guy. I know this. You're a numbers guy, and you've crunched it on this, and you've kind of thought through the scenarios, even though I think we knew this one live. What's the best thing that Bruce Arians could have done in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I would have tried to get the first down, because I mean, obviously, if you run the numbers, they just say it. So they say, okay, you increase your win probably by like whatever, like 4% or so. But there are a few reasons, because the problem is, you kick the field goal there. Obviously the Bears didn't score on the next drive. They punted it back once, and then they scored. But so you score the field goal, you kick the field goal there, you are up by 1 or 2 points, and there are like 5 or 4:30 left, and there's always the risk that the Bears manage to get a long field goal drive.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is with field goal drive, so if the Bears manage to get a long drive, and then they are in field goal range, and then they can, obviously at this point, the Bucs will have used their timeouts, and then they can perfectly time their kick. So if the Bears are at the 15-yard line, and there's 2 minutes left, and the Bucs have used their timeouts, then it's basically game over, because
Right.
the Bears can just run the clock down and then make this kick. Obviously, they could also miss this kick, but
it's just about playing the averages, right? It's no situation guarantees you a win. It's just about putting yourself in the best position mathematically based on history and all the data that we have to be able to win, right?
Right, and nothing's more frustrating than losing to a game-winning field goal, and you just can't do anything about it, because they're in field goal range. You've used your timeouts, and they can just run out the clock and kick this field goal. And yeah, so going up by more than a field goal. So I think they were down 1. Yeah, they were down 1. And so if they manage to score a touchdown on this drive, they are up by 6, or probably by 5 or 7, depending on whether they would have managed to get this.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, but of course they are up by. So the Bears need a touchdown, and if the Bears need a touchdown, they cannot manage the clock that well, because you cannot time a touchdown, right? Because even if you're at the 5-yard line, you have to try to punch it in on any play. You cannot say, okay, let's let the clock, let's wind the clock down, and then score this touchdown on the last play. This isn't possible. If you need a touchdown, you have to score the touchdown as fast as possible, because you never know when you will get another chance to punch it in. So that's of course an advantage. And the other thing is, I mean, you need to stop the Bears anyway, as I explained. I mean, if the Bears get a long field goal drive, they will win this game after you kick the field goal. So even if you don't get that 4th down and you fail, and the Bears get the ball at their own, I think it was the 7-yard line, and you still have the chance to stop them, and you have to stop them anyway, because if you don't stop them, they can kick game-winning field goal themselves. So you have to stop them anyway. So if you fail on 4th down, you just try to stop them, and if you manage to do that, you get another drive. And on this drive, so if you fail on 4th down and then you manage to stop them, then you have probably the last drive. So on your next drive, then you can kick the field goal on 4th down, because it will probably be the last drive, because there's only a few seconds left.
Right.
So
it's about managing those clock and game situations again, which you said is a challenge for more coaches than just about. I know Bucs fans are going to be like, Arians always does that. And that is probably true, but I've seen Mike Tomlin, who's a great head coach, do it for years. We saw Andy Reid, who's a great head coach, struggle with it over and over again for years. So it is, I don't know why, but it's a hard thing for a lot of coaches. So yeah, great points and thoughts about that game. Thanks, Alex, for that question as well. We'll keep rolling, because we got to talk about the Packers a little bit here, Timo. I mean, we've barely even talked. We've talked a lot about Bucs specific stuff and getting behind the numbers, which has been great with Timo Riske, who from Pro Football Focus, who does a lot of analytics and data work for them. And I'm kind of always going to him for cool stats and stuff like that, and charting information and things of that nature. So make sure you're following him on Twitter at PFF_Moo, MOO. Make sure you're giving him a follow there. Terrific follow. Lots of good information coming out of that account. Aaron Rodgers, Timo. This guy is on a tear. The analytics community was tough on Rodgers, and deservedly so, I think, the last couple of years. I mean, he's been fine, but not Aaron Rodgers standards. And when a player sets a standard for themselves, it's okay to talk about them within the context of that standard when you're analyzing their play. And Rodgers just simply hasn't been a top quarterback, in that conversation, MVP type conversation for a little while now. But this year, different story. We're seeing a different Aaron Rodgers. What's your observations been on him? And is there any way to kind of disrupt what he's doing in this Packers offense right now?
Yeah, I mean, so far this season, he's basically playing mistake-free football. I mean, there isn't a lot to nitpick about his play so far. I mean, the problem for him in recent years was he just didn't get rid of the ball in time. Whether this was because his receiver didn't get open very well, but he still has the same receivers, and suddenly it's working. So I mean, it's not clear why he wasn't getting rid of the ball in time, but it led to late throws, throwaways. He took much more sacks than he used to take when he was at the same MVP level. But this season, this is all gone. He doesn't take sacks anymore. He hardly has any throwaways, and obviously also doesn't have any deceptions. But that never was a problem for him. I mean, he also used to protect the ball very well. But all his problems, and getting rid of the ball early, all these problems are gone suddenly. So that's good news for a Packers fan. and that's definitely bad news for the Bucs regarding the Sunday game. But obviously, the Bucs are should be by far the best defense he's facing this season. I mean, obviously, he played against the Falcons. That's not really a defense.
Yeah.
The Vikings
Saints have struggled. It's not been a great defensive slate that they've gone against for sure.
Yeah, the Saints are also, I mean, struggling this year, obviously, on defense. So he hasn't really played a good defense. So the Bucs are really the first test. But I mean, the bad news is when a good offense, and the Packers are probably the best offense of the league right now, meets a good defense, then what history has shown, that usually the good offense wins. So basically wins this matchup. So it's not that like the best offense is not neutralized by the best defense. So the best offense will still play a good game. And obviously, the best offense will usually play worse than against the Falcons. I mean, that's what we hope. But they will still play. They are still expected to play an above average game. So in other words, that's what the Bucs offense has to do on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it's about what the Bucs do offensively more than is defensive. Like you said, when a good offense meets a good defense, most of the time a good offense is going to win out, especially when you're schematically advanced like the Packers are. They offer a lot for a defense to prepare for. It's tough, and the Bucs might be banged up too. No Vita Vea, and maybe no Carlton Davis. We'll have to see. Hopefully, if he can't play, that's pretty scary for the Bucs. But I think that's, without those guys, it's like even more like this offense has to be great for this team to win in this game. And so that brings us almost to the other side of the ball. We talk about Aaron Rodgers all we want, and it's great to talk about him because he's really good. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know that we can I don't know that you're going to like annihilate Aaron Rodgers in this game. You hope your defense is better than the Packers defense, basically, in a matchup of two really good offenses. I think that's kind of how I see it.
I don't know whether the Bucs match up well against the Packers. I mean, the Bucs defense against the Packers offense, because I think the best thing would be like double Devonta Adams, who should be back.
Right.
I think he should be back.
Correct. He'll be back.
And obviously, the plan would be to double Devonta Adams as often as possible, and then play aggressive coverage against the other receivers, which should struggle to get separation against aggressive coverage. But obviously, this is tough for the Bucs because they want to blitz so much. So it's hard to double Devonta Adams and still blitz a lot. That's not really possible. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers hasn't shown any problems against the blitz this season.
Right.
So they don't match up very well, I think. Basically they have to play man coverage, shut down these receivers. I think that's the best chance to disrupt Aaron Rodgers a little bit.
Yeah. I agree with that, and that's why I hope that the press man finally comes out this week. We'll have to see. But Douglas O'Connor asked a good question. He hasn't heard anything about the Packers' defense. What do they do well? Where do they struggle? Honestly, they aren't like a terrible team in most categories, I think, right now. But defensively, not a lot of people think of the Packers as a weak team. But I did see they were fourth worst in DVOA, Football Outsiders. I wasn't expecting that. I know they're 30th in defensive pressures right now, and they're, I think, 30th as well in blitz rate among NFL teams. So in terms of what the Packers do well, just to let you know, Douglas, and anybody else who's listening, the Packers do not blitz very often. They have not gotten pressure with 4 like they did last season. And so there is going to some point, I bet, come an adjustment game where they're like, okay, we're not getting the pressure we want. Maybe it's this week. We're going to blitz like crazy. And so I think the Bucs need to be ready for that. Most teams, when they don't get that pressure, it kind of comes to that point where it's like, okay, we're going to create it and we're going to go crazy trying to create it. And if the Bucs are ready for that, I think they can hit some plays off of it. So that's one thing to watch for with them. They'll mix up their coverages. Jair Alexander and Kevin King mostly play just outside guys, and it's Will Redmond, Shannon Sullivan in the slot. So yes, if you're thinking about Chris Godwin in the slot, he's probably going to have an advantageous matchup. If you're thinking about Mike Evans moving to the slot, so far and I know they've missed out on playing some of the top receivers with Michael Thomas' injury, and I think Kenny Golladay, maybe his injury, and Julio Jones didn't play much of that game. So we'll see how they match up. Jair's followed number ones before in the past. I think he's your guy's number 1 ranked corner, isn't he, right now? Timo, without even though he's not following receivers, Jair Alexander?
I think so. He's
he's very high, having a great season.
I don't know the exact ranking, but it's I think it's very high right now.
Right. So I don't know that there'll be a team where Jair Alexander follows Mike Evans, because it hasn't been what they've done so far this year. But this is also the first time that they'll face a team with these kind of weapons that are well, you hope they're healthy. Packers could do some things that are unorthodox, but right now Kevin King and Jair have played outside. So to me, given the Packers' weakness being at nickel corner and their linebackers not having been a strength for as long as I can really remember, especially in coverage, that attack them in the middle of the field. And it goes back to what you and I talked about, Timo. If the Bucs can attack this team horizontally, crossing patterns and things like that, I think the middle of the field, that kind of stuff might be there for the taking.
Yeah, I think that's also where the Saints had success against them. I think this wasn't the Packers game. Wasn't this the game where Drew Brees looked really washed?
Yes.
And I think they still had a lot of offensive success because basically Alvin Kamara completely crushed them.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't have the Bucs
too,
don't have the running back to do that, so they should probably attack these linebackers a little bit more down the field. Chris Godwin, Cameron Braid could play a big role in all that. OJ Howard is gone for the season. That's probably the way to go. I mean, obviously, Mike Evans can always stretch the field. That's no matter what. But yeah, I think going against these linebackers with Godwin.
And the corners on the outside for the Packers, even though they're good, Kevin King's still kind of up and down, and he will bite on stuff. Jair Alexander will bite on stuff. As good as he is, that's something that both of them do. So I do think, we saw Scotty Miller last week early in the game. He hit a double move on Jalen Johnson and got him, and the ball went somewhere else. But I think it's one of those situations where if you look at the process of the Bucs, I think they can score. I don't think the Packers defense has been awesome this season. Another thing they haven't done well, I know, just looking at team tackle rates at Pro Football Focus and what you guys have as in grades, Timo, is that they have not tackled very well. The Packers have been one of the worst tackling teams in the league per your team grading systems. And so the Bucs don't have a ton of like yak guys and break tackle after the catch guys. So I don't know how much it will matter, but I know that getting Chris Godwin back helps a lot. He is kind of their big threat in that way. And I think Scotty Miller's flashed enough for me to be intrigued about him in that way as well. So it is going to be a fun matchup, but hopefully that gives you some idea, Douglas, about what the Packers do well. I do think they defend the run well, and they're getting Kenny Clark back. He's a great player. And they, Tyler Lancaster, Kingsley Keke, they have a lot of guys, Dean Lowry in there, who've stopped the run really well this season as a collective group. And so, the edges play the run really well. And so I do think that will be key in this game, is if the Bucs try to establish a run heavy approach, I don't know that they'll be maybe as successful as they should be in this game, as you hope they would be. And as I think they really kind of need to be in order to kind of achieve the success offensively that's going to keep them in this game. Talk to you a little bit about my friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Storm season is here. Don't wait to review your insurance policies. Call Briar Greaves Insurance, which is family owned and has served the greater Tampa Bay area for 30 years for your home, auto, boat, life, commercial, and flood insurance needs. If you go see them and talk to them, they're probably going to talk some Bucs football with you. Big Bucs football fans as well, but we all know y'all don't mind that, talking a little Bucs football with them. A lot of homeowner companies are canceling, not renewing policies, leaving Florida, or increasing premiums significantly. Call Briar Greaves and speak directly to Briar or Sam for a personalized touch for information on the best rates. The folks at Briar Greaves Insurance are big fans of the Buccaneers and proud sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast on pewterreport.com. Visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com. That's BriarGrieves Insurance.com, or call 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166 today. The last thing we'll talk about, Timo, before we wrap up this podcast, is this finally the week? We've talked about it a little bit. We touched on it a little bit. Is this finally the week? The Bucs offense puts it all together. They stop shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. They stop dropping the football. They were doing a better job with the play calling, but they handle game situations the way that they should. Turnovers haven't been a huge problem, but they stay away from that. Is this the week that they finally put it together? What are your thoughts? If you want to offer a prediction for the game, you can. I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is your opportunity to do so.
I mean, that's always a tough question because I mean, obviously, yeah, they have all the tools to put it together.
Yeah.
But obviously, they haven't yet. Maybe against the Chargers a little bit, especially in the second half. That was really good. But yeah, I mean, I think they will play a good game on offense. But I doubt that they will score enough to really beat to really score more than Aaron Rodgers.
Gotcha.
So
Going
I think
Packers.
I think I think the Packers will win this game, but I think the offense will play well. It just will not be good enough to keep pace with the Packers offense at this point.
Yeah. You're going the direct. That's what Scott said. He said Packers. I picked the Bucs yesterday on the podcast. I'm believing they put it all together in a crazy game, and I think they find a way. But it should be fun either way. This is going to be appointment TV. There is so much to look forward to in this game. There are awesome matchups in this game individually. There's team matchups. There's Jamal Williams saying on a podcast that his quarterback would never forget what down it is, and so there's a little bit of that chirping going on. That, of course, Brady's not going to hear about at all, and there won't be extra motivation. And so there's just a lot of fun layers and elements to this game, and it'll be nationally broadcast. And I think there's only one other game because of the schedule changes on it.
It's only Dolphins versus Jets.
Yeah,
so
Dolphins versus Jets.
It's basically like a primetime game because
so
not many people watch the other game.
Yeah, and I think the Saints Bucs week 1 already beat the previous year's week 1 Fox game by like a lot in terms of the rating. So it's going to be a fun game. Lots of eyes on the Bucs, and they're going to have a chance to show what they can do against maybe the best team in the NFL. So looking forward to it. Timo, thank you so much for joining me again. For everybody, you can follow Timo on Twitter at PFF_Moo. You can follow him on Twitter. Timo Riske, everyone. Timo, thanks so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We'll do it again sometime too. And remember, Pewter Report fans, go subscribe to us on YouTube. We're going to be going live a lot with the podcast. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff with it. So make sure you're subscribing. Pewter Report TV. You can search us and find us on YouTube, and you'll be able to subscribe there. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this podcast and with your listenership. So for Timo and for myself, your host, John Ledyard, thanks so much for joining us on another edition of the Pewter Report podcast.